What is poppin'? It is the Slaptain. I am but a lowly Slaptain riding these ReFi ways, and this is This Week in ReFi, where we give you all of the ReFi news that is fit to go ape wild over. Of course, with me is the man with the plan, the man with the midsummer tan, the Estonian madman, Sir Rez.
Hello, it's me. We're so back. We're back.
We are so back. Don't adjust your televisions. There's three of us, and two of us are Estonian. The other is Stenver from Denver, because it's easy to remember. Stenver from Solid World.
Hello, thank you for inviting me after being out for like 3 months or something like that. What happened, guys?
Who's counting? Who's counting? We actually weren't out for 3 months. We were recording regularly, but we were bad at technology, so we've fixed it. We think if you're watching this, we've fixed it, and if you're not watching this, you don't even know this happened.
Yeah, it's like it's fine.
So yeah, today's episode is a special one because we get to talk all things Solid World, and you guys have been up to some really cool stuff, and we want to share that with the peoples, and we want to let people know that ReFi is healthy, it is hot, things are happening, and we have proof of it on the screen. So for those of you who are living under a regenerative finance rock, what's going on with Solid World these days? You guys been up to anything lately?
Oh, we just launched our beta, so I guess we are. In fact, some pretty big stuff is happening. Yeah, we launched in May, end of the May, and we've been in the background getting a lot of feedback about everything and building, and we're planning to launch more pools pretty soon as well. And I know a couple of our partners are building on us and also planning to launch a lot of things. So it's quite exciting times right now, and I can see that the temperature is getting hot, just like summer.
Ooh, just like the Arctic waters, right?
Exactly.
We were discussing the Arctic waters and the anomaly in the Arctic Sea in terms of temperature. Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if we've ever actually gone over the role of Solid World. We've alluded to it multiple times. We've talked around it, but I don't think we've ever dove into like, what are you guys looking to solve? What's the problem? Right? And then what solution are you offering? There's a famous quote from Office Space. It says like, what would you say you do? Like, what's the problem?
Well, let me start then. It's actually pretty important. So there's a lot of climate projects out there. People who restore forests or restore mangroves or give cook stoves to people in developing countries or lots of other things. They're called carbon projects or plastics projects or renewable energy plants or whatever. Lots of different names for different types of projects. But they all have a very common theme. And that is the fact that these markets, to actually create these carbon credits, for example, or renewable energy credits and so on, the carbon markets, let's focus on that only. They're very unstructured, very untransparent, and very illiquid as well. So what this causes is that it makes it very hard to actually start these good climate projects. It makes the suppliers on the ground get huge difficulties actually like accessing the financing. I know a landlord. He's done lots of startup investments. He owns tons of lands in Estonia, and he's been trying to start the carbon projects for more than 5 years to reforest the lands. And he's just being held back by the fact that he doesn't know like where to even start because the markets are so complex and he can't put together a P&L. And when he hears offers anywhere from like $5 per ton of CO2 to like 50, and all these different numbers that he's going to get. So some of them are just, trying to rip him off, buy it cheap, and then sell them away for huge spreads. And some of them are frankly just false. Like he will have to work incredibly hard to get like these high numbers. So this makes it hard to start the projects, while at the same time, like investors who are looking to finance these projects are having very difficult time accessing these markets. I've spoken with the countless amounts of investors who start looking into these impact investments, start looking into supporting these carbon projects and climate projects. And deeper they get, the more questions they get. The market is so noisy, it's incredibly untransparent, it's incredibly liquid. Honestly, it's like a medieval bartering economy. Unless you're in the guild, then you don't understand what's going on. And if you want to get into the guild, you got to work hard. And then you only work as part of the guild because honestly, you don't have time to do anything else. So it's only run by extremely niche specialized group of investors, and everybody else around it is looking to get in and is either getting burned or just not entering into the market at all. And we're fixing that. We want to make this market transparent, liquid, and basically we're building like this commodity production financing solution. And not only for carbon assets, but all climate assets in general. Happy to dive deeper into it, but I'll stop there for a second.
No, that's interesting. I'm trying to think of from the perspective of the people, like you'd mentioned, the project creators and the investors. Is it just a matter of like not understanding the complexity of the assets and how they're valued? Like what's the actual holdup? Like I understand that there's maybe siloed information, but like is there some problem in just evaluating like what these things should be worth?
So, Slaptain, have you ever bought an apartment or a house?
Yes.
So, you go to these websites and you see this bunch of prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you met the real estate broker and you start negotiating. Maybe you get like 5-10% if you're lucky, even more discount,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the real estate market. It's not like super liquid. It's not super but it is, it has some level of transparency at least, and you can compare offers between different apartments and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like the competition is there, and the actual like supply and demand dynamics are there, and there's some indexes and stuff that you can publicly see and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Now in carbon markets, if you want to do that, you first got to pay out $10,000 just to see the prices. And that's if you want to see the spot prices. The forward prices, actually investing in the projects before they generate credits, that information is like almost non-existent. So like, because from the moment you plant the trees to the moment where you can issue certified carbon credits, it can take you anywhere from like 3 to 5 years. So as an investor, you're coming to the market and you want to invest in this project when it starts planting. How do you know what the fair price is? And at the same time, like as a project developer, you want to start planting trees and you want to, you have a bunch of land and you're like, I like to preserve nature. I don't want to cut down trees. And like you want to do something good. And exactly the same thing. First, you got to pay 10,000 to access even the prices, and then you still won't get much transparency into the forward prices, and like nobody explains how the market prices actually work.
Yeah, and even the $10,000 you're paying for the prices, a lot of the time is you get to see whatever people are posting in terms of asks. So you don't even like necessarily even understand what the real transaction prices end up being, because every project is like slightly different. You end up with pockets of maybe there's a market there and pockets where just like no market, just everything's OTC. And, that's kind of a reality of the carbon market right now. That's compounded by the fact of, let's say you want to get into financing projects on a forward basis. Now you realize, okay, so now I need to hire maybe like one expert in the field. And then you find out that even hiring that one expert takes you like half a year. And then finally, when the whole thing is super viable, you're probably at like a small VC team, but it's just doing project investing into your climate initiatives, which doesn't really sound accessible even for a medium-sized corporate, right? So ultimately, there needs to be less friction in the whole market for it to function, but also it needs to be opinionated enough to just not start the next, Guardian article of look at how terrible everything is.
Mm-hmm. Who are you paying 10 grand to? I got to ask that. Like, what's that solution?
There's a bunch of different solutions out there, anywhere from AI tools to the news sites to the sites that actually market these prices. And like they usually do have like historical price action information. And then on top of that, they also provide like future prices, but the future prices are usually based on asks, like what's asked on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, like there's not that many public bids on the market at all. But some examples include like QC Intel, Draw Research, Viridis AI. There's others as well. And like there's more and more startups coming into the space who are trying to create price transparency. It's just that's also their main business model. So it doesn't like solve the fundamental issue in the market that it's still so we don't have like stock exchange,
Mm-hmm.
We don't have somewhere where people can publicly see the trades, have like liquid price signals and make their guesses and like predictions based on it. And like as you can imagine, this dynamic creates very predatory markets. I've seen cases where like a UK farmer, or maybe it was some other country, it was in Europe, and they broadly told me like how they get like $5 per ton of CO2 for reforestation. But reforestation credits in Europe are like 20 plus minus $5 currently. So somebody bought the credits from him and then sold them off for like 4 times more expensive. So, and things like that happen all the time in this market because it's just so untransparent. It's so illiquid. It's so predatory. Whoever owns the information owns the market, and he can tell whatever stories to the other side of the deal. And the other side often doesn't really have any, unless they worked hard on creating the markets like we have, they trust the person because there's personal relationships being built there, and there's not a lot of comparison points out there. So when we talk about making sure the people on the ground get access to the capital, that's as much capital as possible, then that actually means building something like, Wall Street has, like a stock exchange where everybody can see the prices and can trade, because that's when markets start becoming more fair. In medieval bartering economy, the markets are not fair. When some people propose solutions like we should connect buyers directly with suppliers, that's just, same thing that's already happening. Like it doesn't create fair markets, actually. That's the current state of the market. It's really, I will compare it to like medieval bartering economy.
I like it. I think the analogy for me of real estate actually is very helpful. And then, like, if all you're seeing is the asks, right? Is that pretty much what you're saying? Like, just what people are asking? Like, that would be like, what are the sellers putting their, like, they could be putting their house in the market for 4 times over value. It's never going to sell, and that'll distort the view of what the fair market of the houses are, right? And I've actually, as a real estate investor, have seen when agents will show you like, well, this is what people are asking for the houses right now, and that's never really the metric. It should always be, what are they selling for, right? Like, who cares what they're asking? You can ask whatever you want. So then you had mentioned forwards, and I know of this because Rez has drilled it into my brain, but could you guys just get, like, this is important to understand. You had mentioned this, like, what is a forward? Like, how is it different than a future?
So we could call it forward, or in some regulations, we should call it pre-purchases or prepaid offtake agreements or things like that. What it really is a mechanism to fund these projects ahead of time. So future is when buyer and seller lock in a price, and when the underlying asset is delivered, then the settlement is done at that price, right? That's what happens with a lot in like commodities markets. But in climate markets, there's a huge issue of project financing. Like there's actually not that big of an issue of venture capital. It's project financing that's usually the issue. Prepaid forwards or offtake agreements are a mechanism to fund them. It's buying up these credits ahead of time at a discount. So that could be like 1 year or 3 years ahead of time. And then the delivery happens 1 or 3 years later, then basically the delivery happens straight to the buyer. And the discount is there. The more ahead you buy, the bigger the discount because of delivery risk, discounted cash flows, all these different aspects. And that's the main mechanism we want to make liquid, and we want to make it transparent and tradable. Because if we achieve that, then suddenly we can have like a very public and transparent, fair market out there where people can support these initiatives. The initiatives can sell their prepaid forwards into the pool. And at the same time, whenever somebody wants to buy forwards because they want to lock in price at a discount a few years ahead of time, a corporate knows that their climate, like sustainability goals are coming, for example, they can just do it with public and liquid price. So that's how really the forwards work. So far, this market has been very hard to establish because it's very OTC and illiquid, as we covered before. But blockchain and automated market makers unlock new techniques to make these new markets very liquid and transparent. And that's what we're here to do with Solid World. And we don't want to do it only for carbon markets. We want to do it for all sorts of real world assets out there in climate and other areas as well.
Awesome. With the forwards, Is that like an escrow account, or are you're literally just paying them and then the expectation is that they deliver?
Yes, you literally pay them, and the expectation is that you deliver. So this immediately raises the question of delivery risk. What happens if the project developer goes bankrupt, first burns down? There's lots of different things involved in there, which is partly why you need to get the discount as well. And because of that, we're every project that we're assessing with something called risk framework. It's carbon risk identification scoring principles. And I'm happy to give you a demo if you want.
Let's do it.
Let's do
And
it. All
you know
right.
it's official when you have an acronym like that. Everything in ReFi has an acronym
Yeah.
like that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it was originally something like just like the delivery risk framework or something, but that doesn't pop. Yeah.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So when you go to our site, okay. When you go to our site, then in the top bar you see CRISP. And it basically is carbon risk identification scoring principles. And yeah, we totally use ChatGPT to figure out that. And basically, you can download and review the entire framework. It's like a 44-page document. And but in essence, what it does, it's like a AI-enabled framework where we assess the carbon yield risk, climate catastrophe risk, policy, financial project developer risk, and we assess the essentially the credit score of the underlying carbon forwards. And every project that tries to sell their forwards to Solid World will go through this assessment. And they also give guaranteed delivery and first delivery, which means that if something goes wrong, if first burns down, they need to provide replacement credits. And also like the first delivery means that when they finally issue credits, they need to deliver us first. And this framework is also being adopted by a couple of insurance companies actually right now, because we made it available as a public good, because we want this to become like an industry standard that everybody can see. And we want them to basically for the people to start making sense of what is going on in the forward delivery risk of these markets.
Yeah, let's stay here for a while because I have a couple of details to add. So, one of the questions you might have is isn't there something like this out there already? And the answer to this is no, because no carbon team wants to share their secret sauce with anybody else too much. So, that means these kind of things are, if they exist, they are very small, siloed, and private somewhere else instead of being shared publicly. Of like, this is our step by step, like, feel free to be inspired by it and make your own, feel free to leverage what we have already done. This kind of approach isn't currently very normal because everybody has realized that information is such a big advantage that they just want to hoard everything to themselves. That's actually not good for the market.
So why are you open sourcing it? Like why?
We want to make this public good. We want to turn this radically untransparent market into a radically transparent market. And this is the first step of doing that. And like when you speak about like our internal motivations, we also want to basically use this as a industry credibility boosting. So like we essentially demonstrated with this to the industry that we're serious, we're here to stay, and we can do some really serious work that nobody else does. You can't imagine how many times people have come and asked us like, maybe you should sell that to us, and we're like, we really want to focus on assessing the projects in our liquidity pools, because like that's the solution that will solve the entire industrial problem. And Chris framework we don't really see currently as a way of turning it into core business. That doesn't really fix the industry. The industry needs solutions that are transparent, because the public frankly is losing trust in carbon industry, especially because it is so confusing and non-transparent. So we need to bring like transparent solutions to the market and build business models that are fundamentally transparent, instead of based on us keeping information to ourselves.
Yeah, there's a second aspect to this as well, which is just what's the critical path to getting a functioning product which enables liquidity, it enables people to trade on a forward basis. And, well, you need a lot of trust creating in the middle, but you also need to make sure that the delivery risks are handled. You need to make sure that your contracts make sense. You need to make sure that a bunch of these things happen before you can start building the liquidity layer. And none of these pieces were in any way in existence when we started. So we had to build all of these things ourselves. Like there was no option. It was just on our path. And ultimately, these are things that are very important for the industry and that we want everybody to be able to see and access and read and understand. Because how are they supposed to trust the rest of the system if we just hide basic details about what we think about risk?
Yeah, and I think this actually brings us to the good point. Like, we actually didn't talk like what's solid world solution besides it being transparent and making stuff liquid and stuff. So, in a very, very simplified way, what we do is we buy these prepaid forwards ahead of time at a discount, and then we sell them away to distributors, brokers, traders, marketplaces, or corporates for a spread. And as soon as we buy a forward, then it immediately goes up to sale for on the other end of the channel. And in the middle, there's people who want to support these initiatives and at the same time get rewarded for providing this public good as well. And this middle part basically finances this initiative and holds on to these assets until they get bought out at the end of the supply line. Unless you have any questions, I'm happy to give a quick tour of that as well.
Do it, man. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of like terminology. You're basically like your broker dealers of forward credits, right? Or how is it? What's the term? Not forward. Like, what do you use? Is it forward credits? Like, how do you even put that into words?
You can think of us like that, but we don't want to use that terminology because that puts us into very specific regulated land, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense.
And on top of that, we're not actually doing like these deals ourselves. It's all done completely in a decentralized, distributed way on the blockchain on an AMM, basically.
Okay, got it.
So let me launch the application. Mm-hmm. Here's our first liquidity pool. It's crisp core mangroves. This means like CRISPM is crisp core mangroves. It's Verra Mangrove Restoration prepaid forward pool. We just recently launched. We already got $1 million TVL in here. And people who support these initiatives, they want to support like mangrove restoration and stuff. They put their capital in here and they earn 14.2% APR. 10% of that is in USDC and 4% is in crisp core mangroves. And so it's all real world assets. Crisp core mangroves CRISPM is 1-to-1 backed, fully collateralized, prepaid forward carbon credit. So there's no like blockchain speculation aspect over here or any crypto stuff. It's, fully collateralized contracts essentially. And you can even see like, what is this crisp core mangrove backed by? And it's basically these projects over here. These are all mangrove restoration projects all over the world. We have projects in Myanmar, Kenya, Senegal, Indonesia, and so on. You can open up any project and dive into the project itself. So this is VCS 1764. It's one of the most successful mangrove restoration projects ever, if not the most successful. You'll see high-level overview of the project. You can see the nice stories about the project, how it was done, where is it based at, what sort of impact it has on the market. Often they have like women empowerment. Mangroves, they're very biodiverse. They capture carbon. NOAA, the North American Ocean Administration, said that mangroves are basically the best type of carbon project out there, only limited by the scalability because you can only grow mangroves in so many places on Earth. But that's basically the lowest hanging fruit we have on Earth for capturing carbon. But on top of that, they also protect communities from hurricanes, for example. Like, that's amazing. Like, if you see hurricanes happen, the villages that have mangroves in front of them, they're fine. But if there's mangroves have been cut down, those villages are completely wiped out. And actually, this particular project, a side note, VCS 1764 is the world's first successful ReFi project as well. There's something called TWIR, which was done in 2017.
Yeah.
And it literally saved this mangrove restoration project. And it became the world's most successful mangrove restoration project since then.
Cool.
But you can also see the technical overview, like high level report of the CRISP framework. And you can also see the high level contracts terms we have. But what's very important, for every project we have, you can open up its deep dive into the CRISP framework. So if you're an analytical person, you can like read through everything. We only accept A to AAA credits into our pool. We guarantee delivering first delivery. And you can also read even the underlying contracts that we signed with our suppliers. So you can go very deep, and we're very transparent in every way possible.
You had mentioned an APR. What's the source of that APR? How would the holder receive that? How is it generated?
So that APR, and that's a good question, and people have asked us this, and we can keep on going with this APR forever sustainably, assuming we recycle the inventory that we have at least 3 times a year. But on a very high level, the APR that we're getting is taken from the trading fees, and we redistribute most of the trading fees we get back as rewards to our liquidity providers. And like, if you want to get more specific and read about like where exactly does our capital come from, then we have this resources page with white paper. And over here we have the fees page, and you can read exactly what the fees are, where they come from, and how are they based at.
Got it. So I know it's very important to source or figure out the source of the return, right? Because
Yeah.
without doing that, it becomes a question of, is this sustainable? But that makes sense. So you're basically subsidizing the LPs from the people actually trading in the pools.
Exactly. They're providing a public good, and they need to get paid for their service, right? Because they have an opportunity cost with their capital. They could be placing that capital into buying their next apartment, like you do, right? When you do real estate investing. Or they could do something else. In this case, they can get very compelling rewards while at the same time support climate initiatives. So it's a pretty good deal.
Just to be clear, like I'm trying to conceptualize this, the risk, let's say that there aren't trades going through them, that would hamper the ability to pay that APR, right? Like that would be the risk of it.
You mean if the trading is low?
Yes, if the trading volume is low.
Yes, if the trading volume is low, then it either hints that the market price is too high because brokers and traders can't find matching buyers on the other side. So eventually it should correct itself. But basically, yeah, 3 times a year is not that, you can have a lot of time to basically fix that situation. But you're right. If like nobody ever trades this asset class, then yeah, we can't keep it up forever. But you have to be like long mangrove restoration to be in this pool. You have to believe that mangroves are good and the mangrove carbon credits are good. And that's like fundamental belief you gotta have when you support this type of initiative.
Right. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that wouldn't happen. I was just trying to like make sure I had the concept figured out perfectly, right? So,
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. There is like inherent market exposure you're taking by coming into this pool.
Awesome, man.
The second part of this is the CRISP-M yield, which just comes from the underlying forward contracts backing CRISP-M, just getting closer to maturity. So that functionally means this is a very stable source of yield. It just happens automatically. We have a whole system that just involves absolutely no people paying out that part of the yield.
Yeah, so this comes back to the discount I mentioned before for prepaid forwards. Forwards always trade at discount versus spot or certified credits. We capture that discount, we call it time appreciation, and we give that to the liquidity providers.
So functionally, what that means is if you're, for example, 5 years away and you sell your contract into the pool, that might be discounted by, let's say, 30%. That 30% now gets distributed over those next 5 years to the liquidity providers as a form of incentive.
Yeah, I wanted to say, because I'm so excited about this and we recently launched, and I don't think you can actually immediately read it here on the site, but like you might ask, like, why wouldn't, 14.2% is very compelling. What makes this better than some alternative options I have? And this is liquid. So if you stake, you can also like withdraw, and you can basically sell your position. So it's very liquid position that you have while being in this pool.
How would you do that? Like how would you sell your position? Would it just be a matter of taking like a like how does that look? Is it a token?
You just sell it on Uniswap, yeah.
Okay, so your position is basically just going to be a token that, and then on Uniswap you can get into like USDC or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Currently, when you stake CRISPM liquidity, what that means is you're providing liquidity on Uniswap in the form of CRISPM tokens and USDC. So functionally, when you withdraw that liquidity, you have CRISPM and USDC. You can sell the CRISPM part of it. You just have USDC. That impacts the market prices. The market prices create arbitrage. The arbitrage stabilizes the market.
And your capital is used to create this liquid market. So thanks to your capital, these project developers can provide the prepaid forwards to the pool. And at the same time, suppliers can buy them out. They can choose the distributors can buy them up. They can find corporates on the other side of the deal and match and try to arbitrage these deals. In fact, we have like a whole Excel we send out to our brokers and traders and marketplaces, where they can see exactly, like, depending on volumes they want to buy from the pool and how much ahead of time they want to buy, what will be the average price. So if they want to buy 1,000 credits this year, that will be like $29. If they want to buy in 2028, it will be around $19.5 because of the forward discount. The more ahead they buy, the cheaper the price, and that's the pitch they can use when selling to corporates as well, for example, and trying to capture the arbitrage. So they can lock in price of really good credits into the future.
Mm-hmm. So you have the mangrove pool. What's the future of the pools? Like, how are they going to be chosen? What do you guys have in mind?
Yeah, let me start off by saying that Verra mangrove restoration credits, I already mentioned Noah listed them as one of the biggest potential out there, but they're currently in the market the most premium credits you can find as well. Basically, you can't get more premium in carbon than Verra mangrove restoration credits unless you get into high tech, direct capture credits and stuff like that. But those credits, the reason you invest into high tech assets is because you want to capture the IP, not necessarily because you want to actually buy the credits, because everybody expects the price to come down for high tech capture, air capture, and stuff like that, basically. So in that case, it's usually you just invest directly into equity because you want to own the IP and all the rights and stuff as well. It's not that great for actually getting a position, and because when we talk about nature-based restoration credits, that's where all the predictions are that the prices will go up. And in case of mangroves, they have gone up. They've gone up around 30% year on year for the last 5 years. So they're really, really good stuff. And what we will see happening is that as the pool's depth grows and as we get the end of the pipeline working, like we've already been talking with tons of brokers, traders, and marketplaces, they're listing our assets and everything, then this will create buying pressure on the market. And then the suppliers will come in and sell more credits to the pool, driving down the price. And as they drive down the price, then distributors will find it easier to sell them off to the corporates again, driving up the price. So it's constantly finding this fair market value that's completely liquid and public. And more projects are already approaching us. They want to access the pool. They want to sell their forward credits to the pool as well. So they go through the CRISP report, and then this CRISP report is taken to the Curation Council. The Curation Council are the 7 biggest liquidity providers in the pool. They have skin in the game, and they can veto any project coming into the pool because they don't want the quality of the pool going down. They want to keep the quality at the same level. And if it gets past the Curation Council, then the new project can tokenize their prepaid forwards and start selling to the pool whenever the price is attractive. And there we have it. We have a completely liquid, functioning market that's fair, that has democratized access to these funding opportunities, and that solves core issue in the carbon market with the blockchain, which is like, how do you actually get these projects off the ground in a fair and equal and transparent manner? And this does it.
Just real quick, like, in a way, is it is it fair to say that to some degree this platform is going to decentralize like VC, right? Like instead of having a person making an offer like to help a project get off the ground, like it's really just like you or I or anybody that has access to the platform could be the ones that are to some degree doing this.
It definitely democratizes access to these opportunities, but I don't think it will replace VC. It will be very complementary, and it will actually bring more carbon VCs into the space, because suddenly there's a functioning secondary market. And this makes it, if you have a functioning, liquid, transparent secondary market for prepaid forwards, this gives courage to the investors. It even gives courage at the earlier stages, because we only take projects once they have either registered or started planting, depending on their
I got
experience.
it. Yeah.
But before that, you also have the feasibility stage. So somebody's got to fund that stage, and that stage is way more likely to get funded if there's a liquid secondary market after that. So it will actually bring in more investors, because they can see, they can make money here, they can run their calculations, they can support these initiatives, and then they can take their forwards and sell them to the pool. So it actually it doesn't replace the investors, it empowers the investors.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I see. I see how it is.
You've launched a mangrove pool. What's your plans with that?
So we want to grow the liquidity depth of the pool. And at the same time, we're talking with lots of suppliers like brokers, traders, distributors who are buying the supply and selling it away to corporates. As they do that, the prices of the pools goes up, and this makes the suppliers sell more mangroves into the pool, driving down the price, which makes it easier for distributors to find buyers at the end of the pipeline. So it will constantly start looking for this market price and create like this completely transparent and liquid prices out there. And by the way, just want to mention that mangroves are some of the most premium prepaid forward credits you can find. Mangroves are like Verra community mangrove restoration. You can't get more premium outside of high-tech carbon removals. So it's basically one of the best asset classes to hold in the carbon markets. They've gone up over 30% year on year for the last 5 years. They didn't like go down when the Guardian article came out that talked a lot about Verra conservation credits and Red Plus and stuff. Because like mangrove restoration is basically one of the best types of, NOAA, I already mentioned that before. Yeah, it's one of the best climate actions there is. We just need to restore more mangroves. They're great. They protect communities from hurricanes, they're biodiverse, they capture a lot of carbon. We all love mangroves.
Awesome, man. And then, so are you going to be mostly focused on mangroves, or is there opportunity beyond mangroves for different assets to pool?
There's way more opportunity. We're already talking about setting up gold standard cookstoves pool. We're also talking about setting up Verra community reforestation. We're looking into peatlands, biochar, and a lot of other stuff as well. And we don't want to just stay in carbon. We want to bring the same solution, this solution of prepaid forwards, into other asset classes outside of carbon, into climate assets, into commodity markets. Wherever there's a forward financing issue and real world assets, or maybe even digital assets, Solid World solution is incredibly unique DeFi protocol that can start making these real world assets markets liquid that are currently completely OTC. And another thing we're looking for, instead, like on top of just bringing more assets on chain and making it liquid and democratizing access to these opportunities and fixing the markets, frankly, we're also looking to insure the whole pool. So we're talking with multiple insurance companies already for getting insurance on these mangrove restoration pool, and in the future the other pools as well.
And so how do you go through the process? Like, let's say if you had a pool that you wanted to put on your platform, like how does that look from that side?
So let's say that you believe in gold standard cookstoves. We'll take that simple example. So either you have capital or you have cookstoves projects yourself as a supplier, or you have both. It could be both. So you can come to us and say that, hey, I want to set up this type of pool. Now, we need somebody to start providing capital on the one side, and we need somebody else to start by providing the forward assets on the other side. Both of these are very, important for setting up the pool. We're signing agreements with both suppliers and liquidity providers, capital providers, and then we're grading this pool, putting these two sides together and launching the pool live. Usually, we require multiple counterparties to sit behind the same table to launch the pool. So I've actually gotten like a lot of interest from a lot of different registries outside of Vera and Gold Standard that they'd like forward financing pools to be set up as well. And one of the first thing we always say is like, great, let's talk about it, let's do it. And yeah, we just need both capital side and the projects to come behind same table and put it together in the pool.
Okay. And then you'd also have to have like, I mean, you do your due diligence to make sure. Like, is there a level of quality at which you would say above this we can do it, below this we won't do it?
So this is a very good question, and the answer is that we we don't want to become like the arbitrageurs of quality in this market specifically, but we definitely focus on the premium assets more. In case the pool is something that we don't really see ourselves doing and putting on solid wall platform, we're still able to set up markets for it and basically offer our solution as a white label solution. And then somebody else can put up these pools and these asset classes on their platform and basically leverage our technology, and which is the entire solution of setting up like liquid prepaid forward market. But like ultimately, it's we can't be like the judges over here, like what's good quality and what's bad quality. What we can be judge of is like what sort of pools we are setting up and we are focusing. But that doesn't mean that somebody who's maybe trying to set up like very questionable pool couldn't come to us and basically say they'd like to use our technology as a white label solution, because we are technology providers. I don't know, Res, if you have any other thoughts on that front.
Yeah, I think a really important question that we haven't perhaps addressed yet is if you're a liquidity provider, coming to Solid World and providing this important service of providing liquidity to the market. What does that mean in practice? Who holds what and how? And I think here is one of the biggest innovations in DeFi is just the non-custodial nature of everything that we're doing. If you provide liquidity to solid world systems, we have absolutely no control to say like, oh, we think your fiat should go here or we think your money should go there. It's purely governed by automated systems with transparent rules. We do not like manually do treasury operations on your money. We do not have control to that degree, which I think is very important because it limits the amount of trust you need to place into Solid World as a sort of manager of funds, because we aren't.
So you guys are completely non-custodial.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is it worth going into how that's happening, or is that pretty complicated?
Well, the long and short of it is that when people are coming into Solid World and providing liquidity, they do so in the form of two tokens. So that's USDC and that's CRISPM. That gets deployed into Uniswap v3 through this cool protocol in the middle called Gamma, which then gives you a token back that reflects your share of this liquidity. You stake that with us. That's where you get the rewards from. Solid World has no ability to take those tokens from you. The smart contract itself defines the terms of how everything's supposed to work. Those are all non-upgradable contracts. Ultimately, on that side, nothing strange is happening at all.
Okay. Interesting. And this is not something that you have seen been done in DeFi before? Like, this is pretty new to your knowledge?
Yeah, I think in DeFi this is almost the norm, but in terms of climate finance, this is very unusual, right? I think that's mainly the thing, because non-custodial nature of like DeFi protocols, that's something we in DeFi land understand.
I got you.
What is new in our case is the forward financing aspect. So that is not something that you've seen in DeFi
No.
elsewhere.
Not at all. No, that makes sense.
But staking and stuff like that, that's very, very normal. But capturing the forward financing, offering, you almost can make a matrix of prices on our pools. So like depending on volumes and depending on the year from issuance, you have this matrix. I showed that Excel before as well. And usually when we talk about Uniswap pools, they're just like one flat prices. But thanks to the forward financing aspect we're creating this matrix of prices, while at the same time we're created the mechanism how to redistribute the discounts back to the liquidity providers as long as the projects themselves get into the pools. And the pools kind of commodify these projects across the asset classes. So there's lots of DeFi innovations over here, just not the staking part. The staking part, I think, is pretty normal.
Okay, no, that's fair. I misheard or didn't interpret what Rez was saying. He said like it was new. I was like, that sounds like DeFi, but he was saying in terms of climate credits and things like that. Let's assume you're a retail investor watching this. You want to know how you get involved. How would you? What's the process look like?
That's very simple. You basically come on our website and then you simply, there's literally like app.solid.world and there's a step-by-step guide how it basically happens. You buy some crisp spam, you deposit it into a Gamma protocol, and then you start staking. You need to go through KYC as well because these are tokenized real-world assets. And now you're literally supporting these initiatives. You're supporting mangrove restoration while earning this yield. And what's also important to mention is that the people who get in earlier, we're gonna reward a lot our early contributors, and we're gonna release some more details about this in the next few weeks as well. But basically, the earlier you get in, the more you stake, and the longer you stake, the better rewards you're gonna get versus the people that get in later. And
What chain are you on? That's important too.
Polygon.
Polygon.
So we're on Polygon.
Very cool. And
Yeah.
if you're a project developer or
if you're a project developer, then just send us an email to partnerships@solid.world or carbon@solid.world. And if you're, or come to our Discord and then just introduce your project. We have a channel over there and we're talking with a lot of people over there. And if you're a distributor, you own a marketplace, you're a broker, you're a trader, and you want to list our inventory and wares, you want to trade against our pools, it's sort of like an open book that you can always see. You can think of it like colleague's book that you can always trade with and you don't hold the risk, then either just do it directly or get in touch with us in our Discord or partnerships@solid.world or carbon@solid.world.
Beautiful. This has been a fantastic episode from my perspective. I've learned a ton about what you guys do, and I hope others watching have as well. And it's just a matter of time before the ReFi thing picks up again. We got ReFi summer happening, right? And hopefully you guys are one of the catalysts that bring the enthusiasm back that we saw a couple years back or a year and a half ago, right? Anything you guys want to add, Rez, Stenver, anything at all? Unrelated, related? Final words?
I think ReFi is super exciting right now. Like you can see so much work being done in the background, and these things are starting to get released. At the end of the summer, in autumn, you'll seeing a lot of our partners starting to release our stuff. We just released our first pool. We received incredibly good community feedback. Our Discord blew up to 7,000 users. We got over 200 industrial partnership emails. Like past few weeks I haven't had any sleep at all, so it's been very crazy. And at the same time you see all these leading players in the space really starting to ship as well. People are already building on us, so yeah, I'm starting to feel that excitement again in ReFi that I felt 2 years ago. Or
Love it, man. And you guys would like, how long have you been at this? Like it's been years, right? Like a couple years?
1.5 year full time now. Yeah.
Yeah. So good to see it pay off. I've, gotten updates from Rez over the years, but it's good to see it all come together. Rez, what were you gonna say, man? Any final words?
Yes. After this podcast, go touch some grass.
Rez, you didn't say much this podcast.
Well, yeah, it's like I have Stenver to say all of the things for me, so I think it would be like a bit weird if I asked like Stenver interview questions, being the dude that designed the protocol.
I mean, you can do the next podcast where you dig really deep, like Solid World Volume 2, and then you just like, grill rest because he can like go to code level with you guys.
Should we go to code level rook? No, we shouldn't do that. That's too nerdy.
I think we'll lose our remaining listeners like
I think you lose me.
that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time.
Yours,
Obviously, we'll check in on this periodically. Very cool opportunity to get into a protocol ground floor, and excited to see where it goes. So everybody remember to ape responsibly.
All right.
We will catch you all in the next one. And yeah, ape responsibly. It's been a while, man. I'm rusty. Make sure you don't do anything I wouldn't do. Is that how I end these things? I don't know, man. Peace. Oh, see you all in the next one.
something
Peace, dudes
peace
and
out.
dudettes.
Yeah.
Bye.